Hi everyone, I am Wendelin Joy Capistrano de Batulak. Today I'll be talking about a key topic in building quality software, a software architecture and design patterns, including UML modeling, and how we can critique architectural decisions effectively. Whether you're starting fresh or improving an existing system, understanding this idea is crucial. Okay, now let's proceed to the introduction. This presentation explores the fundamentals of software architecture, popular design pattern, and how UML modeling supports system, documentation, and architectural critique. It highlights the importance of well-structured design in building scalable, maintainable, and high-quality software systems. Through real-world example and visual modeling techniques, we aim to demonstrate how effective architecture and design choices influences the success of modern application. So, this presentation gives a solid overview of software architecture design patterns and how UML helps us model and critique system. Well, see how thoughtful design leads to software that's scalable, maintainable, and easier to manage with real-world example to bring it to life. Okay, next, what is software architecture? Software architecture is the structure of a software system. It defines how components interact, how data flows, and what design rules guide the entire project. It's like the blueprint of a building crucial before writing any code. So think of software architecture as the blueprint of a system. It defines how components talk to each other, how data flows, and the overall design rule. Example, in an online shopping site, the architecture decides how the front-end, back-end, database, and payment system work together before any code is written. Next is, what are design patterns? Design patterns are usable solutions to common programming problems. They aren't code but templates for solving issues like object creation, communication, or structure. They help developers avoid reinventing the wheel. So design patterns are usable solutions to common coding problems, not code itself but templates. Example, use the singleton pattern. When you need only one instance of class, use the factory pattern to create objects without revealing the creation logic. They help us avoid solving the same problems from scratch and lead to cleaner code. So, software architecture versus design pattern. Software architecture is the high-level structure of the entire system. Also, a overall system organization, components, and communication. The scope is macro-level, entire application on system. The purpose is to ensure scalability, maintainability, and performance. So the design pattern is reusable solution to specific design problems, class structure, object creation, and interaction. Micro-level modules, classes, methods. Promotes clean, flexible, and reusable code. So let's quickly compare the two. Software architecture is high level, the system structure. Example, choosing microservice over monolithic design for scalability. So the design patterns are low level, they deal with specific class and object problems. Example, using the observer pattern to update multiple parts of an app when data changes. In short, architecture is the building layout and patterns are the design choices inside it, like which kind of doors, windows, or wiring you use.
So, good day everyone. My name is Jules M. Poblete. I will be discussing a brief introduction of a unified modeling language o yung tinatawag nating UML. So, ano ba siya? Saan siya ginagamit? At bakit siya mahalaga? Lalo na sa larangan ng technology, sa IT, engineering, or kahit sa business. So Unified Modeling Language is a standardized visual modeling language that is versatile, flexible, and user-friendly method for visualizing a system design. Software system artifact can be specified, visualized, built, and documented with the use of UML. We use UML diagrams to show the behavior and structure of a system. UML helps software engineers, businessmen, and system architects with modeling, design, and analysis. So UML is what we call a standardized visual language modeling. Ibig sabihin, it's a common way of drawing or representing our system designs. Imagine nyo ganito, kapag nagpaplano tayo ng bahay, hindi naman natin basta sasabihin lang sa construction workers o gawa ka ng bahay na may 2 kwarto. Instead, gumagamit tayo ng blueprint. Yung blueprint, standard siya. Kaya kahit sinong engineer, tingnan yon, maiintindihan nila yon kung nasaan yung pinto, yung bintana, yung kusina. Ganon din ang rule ng UML sa software development. Siya yung blueprint ng ating system. Now, sabi dito, UML is versatile, flexible, and user-friendly. Versatile kasi pwede siyang gamitin sa iba't ibang uri ng system like web app, mobile app, or kahit hardware-related projects. Flexible kasi hindi siya limitado sa isang programming language or platform. User-friendly kasi kahit hindi developer, basta may alam sa proseso, maiintindihan yung diagram. Also, UML help us to specify, visualize, build, and document software system. So we use UML diagrams to show the behavior and the structure of a system. So dalawa ang focus niya. Structure, kung ano yung laman ng system, parang skeleton. Yung behavior naman, kung paano gumagalaw yung system, no, parang habits or actions ng tao. So example, kung gagawa tayo ng online shopping app, yung structure niya is yung mga entities like customer, product, order. Yung behavior naman is yung actions like add to cart, checkouts, and payment processes. So UML is not just for software engineers. Nakakatulong din siya sa businessmen at sa system architects. For businessmen, mas madaling makita ang workflow ng negosyo. For system architects naman, magiging mas klaro kung paano mag-uusap-usap yung iba't ibang components ng isang system. So that is the overview of the UML. So next is we have UML modeling language to represent and communicate complex system design and facilitating better understanding and collaboration among stakeholders. So below is why we need the UML. First is complex application need collaboration and planning from multiple teams, hence require a clear and concise way to communicate among them. Businessmen do not understand code, so UML becomes essential to communicate with non-programmers about essential requirements, functionalities, and processes of the system. So a lot of time is saved down the line when teams can visualize processes, user interactions, and the static structure of the system. The UML is general purpose modeling language. The main aim of the UML is to define a standard way to visualize the way of the system was designed. It is also quite similar to blueprint, just like what I've said, to use in other fields of engineering. So UML is not programming language. Okay, it is not a programming language. It is rather a visual language. Now we use UML diagram to portray the behavior and the structure of the system. And the UML, of course, helps the software engineers, businessmen, businesswomen, or a system architect with modeling, design, and analysis. So we really need this UML. Next. So we have two types of UML diagrams. The first one is what we so-called behavior diagram. And the second one is the structure diagram. I will only focus on briefly discuss the behavior diagram, and the next presenter will discuss the structure diagram. So under the behavior diagram, we have 8 diagrams: the activity diagram, interaction diagram, machine state diagram, use case diagram, communication diagram, interaction diagram, sequence diagram, and the last is the timing diagram. I will not discuss all of the diagrams, but I will only discuss the most commonly used diagram, such as the activity diagram, use case diagram, and the sequence diagram. So let's first define what is a behavioral UML diagram. So behavioral UML diagram are visual representations that depict the dynamic aspect of a system, illustrating how objects interact and behave over time in response to events. So basically, behavioral diagram, we are focusing on the dynamic side. Ibig sabihin, paano ba gumagalaw ang system over time, paano nag-interact yung mga objects sa isa't isa kapag may mga events na nangyayari. So para mas maintindihan natin, no, isipin nyo yung isang food delivery app tulad ng Grab or Food Panda. Kapag nag-place ka ng order, may series of actions na nagti-trigger. Una, yung order mo. Papasok siya sa system. Pangalawa, ita-transfer yon sa restaurant. Pangatlo, naghahanap ng available rider. At habang nangyayari lahat ng ito, iba't ibang objects, customer, restaurant, rider, system ay nag-i-interact. So basically, behavioral diagram in UML give us the way to visualize these interactions and processes step by step. So let's first now discuss one of the commonly used diagram under the behavioral diagram. So the first is the activity diagram. Activity diagram are graphical representations of workflows of stepwise activities and actions with support for choice, iteration, and concurrency. It describes the flow of control of the target system, such as the exploring complex business rules and operations, describing the use case, also the business process. In the unified modeling language, activity diagrams are intended to model both computational and organizational processes. Example, workflows. So basically, activity diagram are used para ipakita yung step-by-step workflow ng isang system. So dito natin makikita kung ano ang mga activities ng system or ng user. Meron din itong support for choices, meaning pwede kang magkaroon ng decision points kung saan mag-iiba yung flow ng depende sa condition. So may iteration din, ibig sabihin pwedeng umulit yung activity kung kailangan. At syempre may concurrency na nagpapakita ng mga sabay-sabay na processes. Kung structural diagrams are static, Itong activity diagram ay parang flowchart of on steroids, mas detailed at nakapokus sa flow of control. So example, isipin natin ang online shopping system. Una, maglalagin ang user o si customer. Sunod, magbabrowse ng item. Kapag may napili, i-add to cart at pagkatapos pwede siyang mag-checkout. So sa checkout, may decision point. Pipili ka kung COD or cash on delivery or online payment. Kung COD, didiretso na siya sa delivery process. At merong additional at kung online, kung online payment, may additional step for payment verification. So, with an activity diagram, makikita natin yung buong businesses or business process or use case flow in a clear visual way. Kaya ginagamit ito hindi lang for computational processes like algorithms or system operations, kundi pati na rin sa organizational processes like workflows of the business's operation. So, let's take a look on a simple example. So, here is a simple example of the activity diagram using a decision node. So here are the user. The user will ask to input a number and the number should the user input is an odd number. So ano ba yung mga odd numbers? So sample, meron tayong 3, 5, 7, etc. Then may condition. Kung tama yung ma-input na number ni user, magde-display daw yung number. And kung hindi naman, may error message na magdi-display. So that is a simple illustration on how an activity works on every system or application. So now, next is we have the use case diagram. A use case model describes a system functional requirements in terms of use cases. It is a model of a system's intended functionally use cases and its environment, that is the actors. Use case enable you to relate what you need from a system to how a system delivers on those needs. Think of a use case model as a menu, such as the menu you'll find in a restaurant. By looking at the menu, you'll know what's available to you, the individual dishes as well as their prices. You also know what kind of cuisine the restaurant serves, Italian, Mexican, Chinese, and so on. By looking at the menu, you get an overall impression of the dining experience that awaits you in that restaurant. So the menu in effect models the restaurant's behavior because it is a very powerful planning instrument. The use case model is generally used in all phases of the development cycle by all team members. So basically, a use case model is a way to describe what a system should do, its functional requirements. Ang key idea dito is instead of focusing on the technical details agad, tinitingnan muna natin kung ano yung kailangan ng mga user. Sila yung tinatawag nating actors at paano sila makikipag-interact sa system. So think of it this way, parang nasa restaurant ka. Kapag binigyan ka ng menu, makikita mo lahat ng available dishes, prices, at kung anong klase ng food ang ini-offer nila. Hindi mo pa alam kung paano exactly niluluto yung dish, pero alam mo kung ano ang makukuha mo at kung ano yung experience na pwede mong i-expect. Sa software ganun din. Ang use case model act like the menu. Pinapakita niya kung ano ang possible na gawin ng user sa system. Halimbawa, mag-login, mag-register, mag-order, mag-generate ng report, at magbayad online. Now, bakit siya mahalaga? Una, it gives us a clear picture kung ano talaga ang functions ng system. Pangalawa, it helps the developers and the clients stay on the same page. Kasi minsan, yung iba, yung naiisip ng programmer ay iba yung sa gusto ni client. With the use case model, pareho silang nakikita na visual representations of what the system can do. Pangatlo, it's the planning instrument. Kaya ginagamit siya all throughout the development cycle from analysis, design, hanggang sa testing. Lahat ng team members pwedeng gumamit nito kasi simple lang siya at madaling intindihin. So, in real life example, isipin natin yung Facebook app. Kung gagawa tayo ng use case model, ang mga actors ay yung user at yung admin. Tapos yung use cases, yung as sa menu kanina, no, pwedeng create post, like post, send message, delete account, manage ads, and etc. Hindi natin naiisip kung anong database ang gagamitin or anong coding language. Ang importante, alam natin na ito yung mga features na dapat ma-experience ng user. So the use case model doesn't tell you how the system works internally. Instead, it tells you what the system can do for its user. Just like how menu tells what's available sa isang restaurant without showing you the kitchen. So here is a simple illustration on how the use case diagram works in a system or application. So in this example, I use a use case diagram on how the registration system works. So first we have the so-called actors, the administrator, and the user. So si admin, kaya niyang mag-register, mag-login, mag-search sa database, mag-add ng data sa database, at mag-log out. Same as the user. Kaya rin niyang mag-register, mag-login, mag-search, mag-add, and mag-log out. Ngayon, si admin kaya rin niyang mag-delete ng user at mag-delete ng database na hindi kayang gawin o ma-access ni user. So dito, merong authorization na ipinapakita. Pero in this example, no, makikita natin yung mga events sa bawat actors, kung ano yung kanilang ginagawa throughout the use of the system or the application. So yun yung use case. So I hope you got it. Next diagram and our last diagram is the sequence diagram. A model that the collaboration of objects based on a time sequence. It shows how the objects interact with other in a particular scenario of a use case. With the advanced visual modeling capability, you can create complex sequence diagram in a few clicks. Besides, some modeling tools such as Visual Paradigm can generate sequence diagram from the flow of events which you have defined in the use case description. So, kung sa use case model, nakikita natin what the system can do. Sa sequence diagram naman, ipinapakita natin how the system components interact step by step over time. Imagine nyo na parang script sa isang movie scene. May mga actors or characters, at may mga timeline kung kailan sila nagsasalita o mag-a-act. Dito makikita natin kung sino ang unang gagalaw, kanino siya magsasalita at kung ano ang magiging response. Let's use a real life example para mas madali. So, example, nag-order ka sa Foodpanda. Ikaw yung user. You open the app and select food. So the app sends a request to the restaurant. The restaurant confirms the order and send back a response. The app notifies the delivery rider. The delivery rider confirms and pick up at the restaurant. So finally, the app notifies the user that the food is on the way. So, kung gagawin natin itong sequence diagram, makikita mo yung mga vertical lines ng bawat participants, user, app, restaurant, rider, tapos yung mga arrows, that is the message na papunta at pabalik para ipakita yung mga flow of interactions over time. So, bakit siya mahalaga? So, una, developers and clients see the actual flow of communication. Pangalawa, it prevents confusion kasi imbes na puro salita, nakikita mismo yung sequence of action. Pangatlo, it's useful for checking kung tama yung order ng steps bago pa tayo mag-code, no? So, example, parang nagpa-party ka at gusto mong i-organize ang sequence ng program, sino yung unang magsasalita, sino yung susunod, ano yung magiging response. That's exactly what a sequence diagram does. Now, it gives us a visual script of how the system components interact para walang sablay. So, tandaan nyo na the sequence diagram focuses on the order of interactions between system component over time. Kung ang use case model ay parang menu ng restaurant, ang sequence diagram naman ay parang flow of waiter, kusina at cashier habang inaasikaso yung mga order. So that is the sequence diagram. So let's look at this example of a sequence diagram. So this example is a music recommendation based on the user mood. So as you can see, we have the user, the device, and the database. So in our first step, so the user will open the app and then access the webcams. Then it will get the photo or detect the face. Then papasok siya sa database and babato siya sa device and magde-display ngayon yung mood kay user and magge-generate ngayon ng playlist and after that, pwede nang i-play ni user yung music playlist based on her mood. So basically, in this sequence diagram, ipinapakita nito yung detailed flow o pagkakasunod-sunod ng mga events no, na ginagawa ng isang system or ng isang application. So, at kung paano yung process ng flow papunta at pabalik. So that's how the sequence diagram works.
Good day everyone, I am Judal and Luna, and I will be discussing about the structural UML diagrams. So these diagrams basically focus on the static side of a system, meaning the parts that don't really change, like the classes, objects, and components, and how they are connected. Think of them as blueprints of the system architecture. So for today, we'll go through 4 types: the class diagram, package diagram, object diagram, and component diagram. The first one is the class diagram, which is actually the most common UML diagram you'll see. It shows the classes in a system, their attributes, methods, and how they relate to one another. So in short, it's like the backbone of any object-oriented program because it gives a clear picture of how the software is structured. So this is the class diagram. Here you can see different classes represented as boxes. So each class usually has three sections. The top for the class main, name, the middle for attributes or variables, and the bottom for methods or functions. So you'll also notice lines connecting these classes. So this shows relationships like inheritance. So when one class extends another, or associations when two classes are connected. So in short, this diagram helps us understand how the different classes in the system are related and what each class is responsible for. So para itong family tree, yung mga boxes ay mga membro ng pamilya or yung classes, and yung mga linya ay nagpapakita ng relasyon nila sa isa't isa, kung magulang, anak, or magkakaugnay. Next is the package diagram. So think of packages as folders in your computer. They help you organize files so things don't get messy. So in the same way, package diagrams group the related classes and elements together. So the system is easier to understand and manage. So this is the package diagram. Each big rectangle you see here represents a package, which is like a folder grouping related elements together. So inside the packages are classes or sub-packages. The arrow or lines between them show dependency. So meaning kung anong package relies on another. This makes it easier to organize the system so that if you're looking for something, you know which folder it belongs to. Now we have the object diagram. So an object diagram can be referred to as a screenshot of the instances in a system and the relationship that exists between them. So since object diagram depicts behavior when objects have been instantiated, we are able to study the behavior of the system as a particular instant. So if the class diagram is about the design, the object diagram is more like a snapshot of the system in action. It shows actual objects, so meaning instances of classes, and their relationship at a certain point of time. So this is helpful if we want to study how the system behaves when it is running. So this is our object diagram, and it looks similar to the class diagram, but you can notice the difference. So instead of just class names, we now see specific objects or instances. So for example, instead of just showing a student class, this diagram might show an actual object like student1 colon student with real values for its attributes. So this gives us a snapshot of the system at a certain point of time, like pausing the program and looking at what objects exist and how they are linked. So kung ang class diagram ay parang blueprint ng bahay, ang object diagram naman is parang litrato ng bahay na may nakatira na at may gamit na sa loob. Lastly, we have the component diagram. So this one focuses on the physical parts of the system, like modules or libraries, and how they work together. It's really important when designing bigger systems because it helps us check if all the needed functions are covered and how different pieces connect. So this is the component diagram. The boxes here represent the components or physical parts of the system, so like modules, executables, or libraries. The connectors between them show how they communicate, often through interfaces. Basically, this diagram answers the question, how are the system's parts actually built and how do they interact? This is especially useful when the system gets more complex. So overall, structural UML diagrams give us different views of the system, from general structure of with classes and packages to more detailed instances with objects and finally to the actual physical setup with components. They help make sure our system is well organized and easy to understand.
Hello everyone. Today I'll share some important concepts in software architecture. So let me discuss you the different architecture patterns and design patterns and of course the role of UML in architecture documentation. The first is the architecture patterns overview. So, ang software architecture ay parang blueprint ng isang system. So, dito nakadepende yung needs at yung iba't ibang architectural patterns. So, ang mga pwedeng gamitin dito, like ang pinaka-common is yung layered of three-tier architecture, microservices, client-server, and yung event-driven architecture. So, ang bawat isa nito is may kanya-kanyang paraan kung paano gawing mas scalable and mas maintainable ang isang system. So, dito sa layered architecture, hinahati ang isang system sa layers. Usually, presentation, business logic, at yung data. So, dahil sa separation, mas malinaw ang responsibilities at mas madaling mag-maintain. For example na lang is kung may babaguhin sa data storage. So, hindi ito maapektuhan ang pinaka-UI layer. So, ang layered is merong tatlong main tiers. So, the first is presentation layer. Dito, paano nag-interact ang isang user. So, ang business logic layer naman is dito nagaganap ang rules and processing. And the last one is data layer. So, dito nakastore ang mga information. And dahil dito sa tatlong to, nagkakaroon ng isang modular at madaling palawakin ang ganitong approach. Then, the next is sa microservices. Hinahati ang system sa maliliit na services. Bawat service is may sariling business function at nakikipag-usap sa iba gamit ang APIs. Mas madali itong i-scale, i-deploy, at i-maintain. For example na lamang is yung e-commerce system. So, dito nakahiwalay ang payment, inventory, at shipping bilang independent services. The next one is yung client-server model. So, dito, pinaka-classic. Kumbaga, dito yung ang client ay nagre-request at ang server ang nagre-respond. So, dito, nagkakaroon ng isang foundation ng web at mobile apps. For example, yung browser or app ang client at yung server is yung nagpa-process ng logic at data. The next one is yung event-driven. Dito, nag-uusap yung mga components gamit ng events. So, may benefit din to, kumbaga, ito yung real-time system tulad ng messaging apps, IoT, or di kaya yung mga stock trading. Then, dahil dito, mas mapapabilis ang isang process or nagkakaroon ng scalable ang pag-response. Then, dumako naman tayo sa types of design patterns. Dito nagkakaroon ng isang solution sa recurring problems sa mas maliit na scale. meron itong tatlong types, which is creational design pattern, structural design pattern, and behavioral design pattern. Sa creational patterns ay ito lang ay tungkol ito sa mga object creation. Instead of directing creating object, nagbibigay sila ng iba't ibang paraan para gumawa ng object para mas flexible ang system. So, meron itong 5 types. The first one is singleton. Dito, once instant lang ang class sa buong system. Then, yung second is factory method. Subclasses ay nag-decide kung anong object ang gagawin. And the next is abstract factory. Gumagawa ng families of related objects. The next one is builder. Step by step ang construction ng complex objects. And the last one is prototype. So, dito naman, gumagawa ng bagong object by cloning an existing one. In short, ang creational patterns is nakadefine kung paano ang isang object ay nagagawa. So, parang sasabihin natin, ang creational design pattern is from the scratch. The next design pattern is structural. Dito naman is naka-base kung paano pinagsasama-sama ang isang classes at objects. Para makabuo ng mas malaking structure, meron itong goal. Mas gawing mas flexible at efficient ang design. Then, meron itong 7 type. The first is adapter. Dito, connector siya or translator para mag-work ang dalawang di compatible. So, ang bridge naman is yung hiwalay ang abstraction at implementation. So, the third one is composite. Tree-like structure, kumbaga ito yung pinaka-whole part ng relationship. And decorator is nagdadagdag ng features na hindi binabago ang original object. Then, ang facade is simplified interface sa complex system. Flyweight naman is ito yung ginagamit ang mga objects para makatipid sa memory. Kumbaga yung gamit na. Nire-reuse na lang, kumbaga. Then the last one is proxy. Dito, naka-placeholder ang mga nagko-control ng access sa ibang object. So, kung ang creational design pattern is from the scratch or kung paano nagagawa ang isang object, dito naman, how object composition and organization. Paano na-organize ang isang object gamit ang structural patterns. The last one is behavioral patterns. It is all about communication and interaction ng isang object. Sila ang nag-determine kung paano nakikipag-collaborate at nag-share ng responsibilities ang mga objects. So, meron itong 10 types. The first one is chain of responsibility. Request na ipinapasa sa chain hanggang may mag-handle. The command naman is encapsulates requests as objects. Useful for undo. The third is interpreter. Nag-interpret ng grammar or expression. Iterator naman is step-by-step access sa collection. Mediator naman is central controller ng communication. Memento, save, restore state ng object. Observer is one-to-many notification system. State is behavior na nagbabago depende sa state. Strategy is yung interchangeable algorithm, hindi binabago. So, yung template method is skeleton of algorithm. Then, meron tayong visitor. Ito yung nag-add new operation without modifying objects. So, yung dito sa behavioral patterns is how communication and responsibility sharing among objects. Then, dito naman tayo sa role of UML in architecture documentation, which is Unified Modeling Language na ginagamit para mag-document ng software architecture. May tinatawag tayong 4+1 view model. Ito ay binubuo ng logical view, process view, development view, physical view, and yung +1 is yung scenarios. Sa use case view, dito is nakafocus ang requirements mula sa perspective ng users at stakeholders. Logical view is nakafocus sa functionality at structure ng system. Process view is the dynamic behavior, concurrency, and yung interaction habang tumatakbo ang system. And the deployment view is yung ipinapakita kung paano dinadeploy ang system sa hardware at networks. And yung last one is ito yung scenarios view, ang +1 view. Gumagamit ng scenarios o use cases para ipakita kung paano talaga gumagana ang isang system sa totoong buhay. Kapag pinagsama-sama ang apat na view is mabivisualize na ng UML ang buong system. Kumbaga is mula sa requirements ng user hanggang sa design, runtime, at yung deployment. In conclusion, ang architectural pattern ay nagbibigay ng isang pinakamalaking structure sa buong system. Then, yung design pattern is yung nagbibigay ng solution sa common design problems. And the last one is yung UML. Ay nagsisilbing standard language para sa documentation at communication. Thank you.
So, good day everyone. I am Princess Jane Jimenez and I will be discussing what is architecture critique. So, ano nga ba ang architecture critique? Ito ay isang formal na pagsuri or analytical evaluation ng disenyo ng software system. Ang layunin nito ay siguraduhin na ang architecture ng isang software ay tumutugon hindi lamang sa functional requirements tulad ng features at functionalities, kundi pati na rin sa mga non-functional requirements gaya ng scalability, reliability, performance, security, at maintainability. For example, kung ihahambing natin ito sa paggawa ng isang bagay, ang architecture critique ay parang pagre-review ng plano ng bahay bago ito itayo. Sinusuri muna kung matibay ang pundasyon, maayos ang pagkakahati ng mga kwarto, may sabat na ventilasyon at seguridad bago magpatuloy sa mismong construction. So, ngayon, bakit nga ba mahalaga ang architecture critique? So, here are some of the purpose of architecture critique. First is, detect design flaws early. Kung maaga nating makikita ang mali sa disenyo, mas madali at mas mura itong itama kaysa kapag tapos na ang system at may gumagamit na. Next is, assess risk before they escalate. Sa ganitong paraan, napipigilan ang pagkakaroon ng mas malalaking problema habang nasa development or production stage na ang system. Next is, validate architectural decisions. Sa madaling salita, tinitingnan naman ito kung tama ba ang mga desisyon na ginagawa ng architect. Halimbawa, kung bakit napili ang isang framework, database o cloud provider. At panghuli, check readiness for growth, change, or load. Sa panahon ngayon na mabilis ang paglaki ng user base ng mga applications, napakahalaga na handa ang architecture na mag-scale up. Sa architecture critic naman, may ilang categories na tinitingnan para masuri kung maayos ba ang isang design or architecture. Ang una is modularity. Are components logically separated and loosely coupled? Ito, ibig sabihin nito kung may babaguhin sa isang bahagi ng system, hindi madadamay o masisira ang iba pang bahagi. Next is reusability. Sinusuri nito kung maaaring magamit muli ang mga modules sa ibang system o ibang context. Halimbawa, isang payment module na pwedeng i-reuse sa iba't ibang applications. Next is scalability. Mahalaga na makita kung kayang hawakan ng system ang mas maraming users o mas malaking volume ng data na hindi kailangan ng major refactoring. Next is security. Dapat namang masiguro na mayroong sapat na data protection, authentication at access control. Dito naman nasusukat kung kaya ba nitong protektahan ang mga sensitibong impormasyon ng isang applications. Next is maintainability. Sinusuri naman ito kung madali bang gumawa ng updates o changes sa system nang hindi nadadamay ang ibang bahagi or features. Next is deployability. Tinitingnan naman ito kung madali ba itong i-deploy at i-manage sa iba't ibang environment. Halimbawa, sa testing, staging, or production servers. At panghuli is technology fit. Ito naman, sinusuri ko ang mga piniling tools, programming languages, at frameworks ay akma sa scale, requirements, at layunin ng proyekto. So, may iba't ibang paraan para magsagawa ng architecture critic. So, here are some architecture critic techniques. First is Architecture Trade-off Analysis Method or ATAM. ATAM is a risk-informed structure approach created by the Software Engineering Institute at Carnegie Mellon University. So, ito ay ginagamit sa early stages ng software development lifecycle upang masuri kung paano nakaapekto ang mga desisyong architectural sa iba't ibang quality attributes gaya ng performance, availability, security, at maintainability. Isipin mo ito na parang pagtimbang kung ano ang mas uunahin. Mas mabilis ba ang system pero mas mabigat sa resources o mas secure ba pero baka bumagal ang performance? Tinutulungan ng ATAM ang mga developer, architect at stakeholders na makita ang trades-off at risk bago pa man tuluyang gawin ang system. So, here is the ATAM process. So, ATAM process has 9 steps. First is present ATAM. Dito, ipinaliliwanag muna ang konsepto ng ATAM sa lahat ng stakeholders. Tapos, ang layunin nito ay maging familiar sila sa proseso at masagot ang kanilang mga tanong. Next is present business drivers. Lahat ng kalahok ay nagpe-present at nag-i-evaluate ng mga pangunahing layunin or requirements ng negosyo para sa system. Ito ang magiging basihan kung bakit ginagawa ang isang system. Next is present architecture. Ang architect ay nagbibigay ng overview ng system design. Kasama dito ang modules at mga components at connectors views para mas maintindihan ng lahat. Next is identify approaches. Dito naman ipinapakita ng architect ang mga posibleng architectural strategies or methods. Dito pinag-uusapan ng team ang mga ito at kung paano makatutulong sa proposed architecture. Next is generate utility tree. Dito, nilalagay ang isang tree or diagram ng mga pangunahing business at technical requirements. Ang bawat requirements ay iniuugnay sa tamang quality attributes, halimbawa sa performance, security, maintainability. Next is analyze approaches. Dito naman, lahat ng scenarios ay sinusuri at niraranggo ayon sa kahalagahan. Ang mga matataas ang priority na scenarios ay ina-apply at minamapa sa architecture. Next is brainstorm scenarios. Ang mas malaking grupo ng stakeholders ay nagbibigay ng kanilang mga karanasan, sitwasyon at mga concerns. Dito mas nadaragdagan ang listahan ng scenarios na kailangang isaalang-alang. Next is analyze again. Dito naman inuulit ang step 6 pero ngayon gamit ang mga bagong scenarios at inputs mula sa mas maraming stakeholders. Next is present results. Sa huling bahagi, nire-review ng team ang lahat ng mga risk, non-risk, sensitivities at trades-off na natuklasan. Dito, tinitingnan nila kung may bagong risk teams na lumabas at sa dulo, lahat ng findings at documentation ay ibinibigay sa stakeholders. Next is scenario-based architecture evaluation. Ito naman ay isang paraan ng pagsusuri gamit ang realistic or hypothetical scenarios na maaaring maranasan ng system sa kanyang deployment. Ang mga scenarios ay pwedeng normal, daily use, extreme or biglang pagdami ng users, or unexpected. Layunin nito na makita kung kaya ng system na panatilihin ang quality attributes kahit sa stress conditions. So here are the 6 core steps. First is choose an evaluation method. Dito, you can either choose ATAM or other evaluation methods. Next is define the evaluation scopes and criteria. Dito, pumapasok kung alin yung mga susuriin mo like performance, security. Next is select and prioritize scenario. Halimbawa, biglang dumobol ang users. So, alin ang dapat nating unahing gawin? Next is analyze scenarios and architecture. Dito, hinahanap kung paano ba tatakbo ang system sa mga scenarios. Next is synthesize and communicate results. Dito natin malalaman kung ano ba yung mga recommendations na maaari nating gawin or baguhin sa ating applications. Last is review and improve the evaluations. Dito naman, kapag nagkaroon ng mga bagong feedback, pwede nating siyang i-apply at baguhin sa ating applications. So, next is checklist review. Ito naman ay isang detalyadong manual na ginagamit para suriin kung maayos at kumpleto ang disenyo ng software. Nakatutok ito sa design principles, UI, UX, usability, performance, at security. Ang checklist ay parang guide questions na dapat sagutin para masabing maayos ang design. Next is peer review. Ang peer review naman ay proseso kung saan ang mga kasama sa team ay nagre-review ng work product ng isang developer tulad ng documents, design, or code. Layunin nito na matukoy at maitama agad ang mga defects bago pa ito makarating sa users. Mas magiging mura at madali ang mag-ayos ng problema kapag nakita ito sa requirement stage kaysa sa testing or deployment stage. Halimbawa, kung may mali sa database design na nakita agad sa peer review, madaling ayusin habang nasa papel pa lang. Pero kung na-discover na sa production, mas malaki ang gastos at effort. So, for the conclusions, Architecture critique is not just about finding flaws. It's about ensuring that a software system aligns with its goals, stakeholders' needs, and long-term sustainability. By systematically evaluating architecture using established methods and perspectives, we reduce risk and build stronger, more maintainable systems. That's all. Thank you.